So what is the difference between a regular response, a normal response, and a reflex?
A
Hey.
reflex
Uh-huh.
only goes to the spinal cord, but a normal response goes to the brain.
Exactly. Perfect. So, and that's what makes it so much faster. All right. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go over your stop to think questions. Anthony, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because today what I'd like to do is we've been talking about your senses and how they trigger an impulse. Well, I kind of wanted to take today to show you how that happens in each of the senses. So you're not going to have to know a ton of the tiny details that we're going to talk about today. But what I want you to understand is how your senses start the impulse, what triggers the impulse for each of the senses, and then how that's interpreted and a response is made. So I want today to kind of tie all that together. We're going to talk about hearing. Do you have to remember the 3 bones of the ear? No. So I'll tell you the things that I really want you to remember. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these answers. So if you have to correct, what I suggest you do is you can take a screenshot after I get all of them uncovered. That might be faster than having to write down. Okay? Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So the nerves that take information from our world are called sensory neurons. I bet a lot of you said it's because they are getting the information from all of our senses, like touch or sight. So sensory neurons can detect information from all of your 5 senses. And what's fascinating is each one of these are triggered by a different kind of a stimulus. All right, so something happens, somebody bumps into you. Where would you detect it? Well, wherever the part of your body got bumped would be where you would detect it, because that's where the receptors would be. It's analyzed in the brain. And the interneurons are called that because they are kind of the go-between between the sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Okay. Is breathing completely involuntary? What do you guys say about this?
No.
You said no, why?
You can like hold your breath.
You can. The other thing too is I can force myself to breathe faster. I can force myself to breathe slower. I can kind of do that. However, I don't necessarily have to think about breathing to do it. And I breathe when I'm asleep. I breathe even if I would be unconscious. So it's kind of both voluntary and involuntary.
Yeah, for that one, I said like it was completely involuntary. And then I said like when you're like exercising, you can breathe harder. Or
Mhm.
like after you come out of like the pool or the water or something, like you take a really deep breath.
Oh, that's a good example too. Yep, exactly. You guys probably came up with other examples than I did. I use the digestive system. So this is saying which body systems interact with the involuntary part of your nervous system. So I was thinking of the digestive system. When I eat something, the muscles in my esophagus and in my stomach, those work automatically. I don't have to think about it. The chemicals come from my stomach automatically. But you could have said the circulatory system because your heartbeat is regulated, your blood pressure. So really, you could have said any system and had many examples. What is the part of your brain that's helping you decide what to wear? That would be the cerebrum. That's the thinking, reasoning, analyzing part of your brain. The folds and wrinkles are what allow more surface area to have more neurons. And it's your brain stem that controls all of those automatic basic life functions. So that's what's allowing you to breathe even when you're sleeping. I answered this, the palm of my hand, because it seemed to be more sensitive, and I could use a 2-point sensor to determine this. I could test it. All right. If you want to, oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So this one's really important because there is going to be a question on your test that's going to ask you to kind of put this all together. So, and on a test, I would even allow you to do this in steps, which might make it easier to kind of see. But number one, what happens is when the toothpick touches, there are touch or sensory receptors in my finger. Those receptors were stimulated by the pressure, started an impulse. Number two, an impulse was started. The impulse travels along your sensory neuron, goes to your spinal cord, and then into your brain. Your brain is analyzing this. So your brain has all these interneurons. So it's analyzed in the brain, and then interneurons in the brain pass it to motor neurons that then travel to tell you if you were feeling one or two, and then even making your mouth form the words. This is kind of what it looks like. So here, if you were going to choose to do a diagram for this, so here you have a sensory receptor. It triggers the impulse. The impulse goes to the spinal cord. Now, this is not a reflex, so it continues onto the brain. And then do you remember the part of the brain that acts like a switchboard sending a signal to the right part of the brain? That's what's happening here. So that signal goes here to the brain. And then it's interpreted, a response is made, and it goes by motor neuron back through the spinal cord to whatever it is that's going to make the response.
Mrs. Drews,
Yes.
on this one, I wasn't sure if it was a reflex or not because I was thinking like, I guess when your partner touches you, it could hurt. But I guess it doesn't really hurt because you're not really like in
Right.
pain and trying to move.
A reflex is a movement that happens automatically without you thinking about it. You know, like if you really stub your foot and it
Yeah.
pulls back, or like the doctor taps your knee and it just kind of
Oh
kicks,
yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
not even thinking about it. That's a reflex.
Okay.
So this was definitely one that was analyzed, and you're right, because your brain was saying, is that one or two?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Mhm.
Good question. Okay. So again, it's going to start with a stimulus, receptors in whatever sense organ. Do you remember there was a question on the reading quiz, and it said, where would you expect to find receptors? And it listed your muscles, it listed your mouth, and then a couple of other places. Do you remember that question? It was on
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
list.
I had trouble
Yeah.
trying to figure that one out.
I
Because-
said muscles.
right, but see, the
Uh-huh.
only one of those that was a sense was your
Was
mouth.
the mouth? Yeah, I said the
Yeah.
mouth because I was thinking about like how you said the salivary glands.
Yeah.
Like when you see something and like you start salivating or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you're like, ooh, food.
So your muscle responds to the motor neurons, but your skin is what has the sensory receptor. So it's going to be some sense organ. So the receptor, I liked that question, by the way. I thought it was a great question. And then the receptor starts the impulse, sensory neuron takes it to interneurons in the brain. It's analyzed, a response is thought of, goes by motor neuron to whatever. In this case, it's to a muscle to pick up the water. Okay. On with the senses. So basically, your body has an alert sense system. That's really what these senses are. Now, do you remember in your homework, you had a page that looked like this? So
Yeah.
you had to come up with the sensory organ and the receptors. What I want you to get at the end of this keynote is the relationship between the sense organ, the sensory receptors, and what they're stimulated by. So you don't have to know all the different parts of the tongue or the ear, or I just want this to be a complete picture for how something goes from stimulus to response. And I thought it would be cool for you to see how these work. All right, so we're going to start with hearing. So basically, when an object vibrates, it causes the air around it to vibrate, and those make sound waves, which is a form of energy. When those reach your ears, they stimulate nerve cells or receptors that are in your ear. So the sound waves are the stimulus here. It's in your brain, however, that tells you what it is you're hearing.
Good question. You are hearing sound waves. I think I should explain a little bit about how sound works. Sound waves are vibrations in the air around you. When something creates a disturbance in the air, waves travel away from the disturbance, just like ripples on a pond. Sound waves travel real fast, about 1,200 kilometers per hour. That's about 12 times faster than a really big shark. Let's take a close look at your ears to see how you hear sound. Listen carefully. If you had a see-through head, you'd look something like this. Your ear is divided into 3 parts. The outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The inner ear isn't really this big, but we've drawn it large so you can see it better. The outer ear is the part you can see. It's made of a rubbery substance called cartilage, and its little ridges bounce sound waves into your middle ear. The sound waves travel down the auditory canal and hit your tympanic membrane, or eardrum. The vibrations of sound make your eardrum vibrate, just like a real drum. The ear contains the smallest bones in your body, the hammer, the stirrup, and the anvil. Let's see them in action. The eardrum's vibrations are transferred to the hammer, which begins to move back and forth really fast. The hammer bounces against the anvil, which passes its momentum to the stirrup, creating vibrations in the inner ear, kind of like Morse code. The inner ear is connected to nerve fibers that carry the signal to your brain. Your brain turns the signals into sound. That's what you hear.
Now, if you haven't heard something before, then you would next time recognize it. So again, you don't have to remember all these details. But again, like you saw in the movie, the sound waves, the outer part of your ear really is just acting like a funnel. Causes your eardrum to vibrate. It's the cochlea that has the receptors. So it's got fluid in it. And when the stirrup, you can see on this picture where these 3 bones are, when it vibrates, the fluid also begin to vibrate. Those stimulate the endings in the cochlea, and impulses are sent to the brain by the auditory nerve, where it's interpreted. So those vibrations move through those 3 little bones. The stirrup bone right here rests against a second membrane on an opening to the inner ear. Now, do you remember we talked about balance is controlled by different senses that you use? I think I mentioned that you use sight and hearing for maintaining balance. Well, there are special structures and fluids that are constantly adjusting to the position of your head. Do you know how if you have a glass with water and you tilt it, you know, the water situates so it's flat again? So what happens is your brain signals or interprets the impulses based on where this fluid is located, and it helps your body maintain balance. Depending on how the nerve endings are stimulated, you hear different types of sounds. So high-pitched sounds would make the endings move differently than low-pitched sounds. So spinning around, why does that make you dizzy? Because when you're spinning really, really fast, the fluids in your ear are sending an impulse to the brain, but that impulse isn't agreeing with the position of your head, so you're dizzy. So the impulse hasn't had time to catch up with the new position of your head when you're spinning around so much, and that's why you feel dizzy.
Mr. Roos,
Yes.
can you go back to the last slide? Because I didn't get all of the notes.
You know what, Anthony? This will be on a video today too.
Okay.
Okay? All right, let's talk vision. Does anybody remember what the receptors are for in your eyes?
Isn't it rods and cones?
It is rods and cones. So when you get to the part of this video, you're going to get to see how these rods and cones work.
To see stuff. I don't get it. Sincerely, Fausto. Well, believe it or not, your eyes work kind of like a film camera. Light tends to move in a straight line unless something reflects it or bends it. When light hits an object, it bounces off and is reflected into your eyes. Your eyes have their own light-bending parts called the lens and cornea. The cornea is the outermost part of the eye. It collects all the light that's bouncing off of objects and focuses it through a small hole. That's your pupil, the black spot we all have at the center of our eyes. The iris, or colored part of your eye, opens and closes around the pupil, depending on how much light there is. If it's dark, the pupil will open up wide to let in as much light as possible. Whoa. Right behind the pupil is the lens, which focuses light onto the back of your eyeball. The lens is clear and curved, and it can change its shape depending on what you're trying to focus on. It acts a lot like the lens of a camera. The back of the eye is coated with a special layer of tissue called the retina. The retina is kind of like the film in a camera. It's covered in photoreceptive nerve cells. Oh, photoreceptive just means they're sensitive to light. Anyway, there are 2 kinds of photoreceptors on the retina. You've got about 6 or 7 million cones and more than 120 million rods. Rods are very sensitive to light. In fact, they can be triggered by a single photon. The cones are less light sensitive, but unlike the rods, they can detect color. No, I am not posing for color pictures. So the lens projects an image onto your retina where the rods and cones transform the light and color into electrical impulses. These are transmitted up your optic nerve and into your brain. There, your brain decodes the image, and that's how you see. Right, there's another way the eye is like a camera. When a camera lens focuses an image on film, it winds up upside down. And when the lens of your eye focuses an image on your retina, it also turns upside down. But when your brain processes the image, it flips it right side up for you. If that didn't happen, well, you'd probably fall down a lot more often.
Did that help kind of seeing how the rods and cones work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your eyes have those structures like you saw that bend light. The cornea, which is what I scratched, if you remember, first bends the light, and then you have a lens, and it directs it to the back of the eye right here, which is the retina. And that's where the rods and cones are. So here's the retina, and what you're seeing along here are these. And the cones respond to color, and the rods respond to dim light, and they help you detect shape. You do not have to remember which does which. You need to know the rods and cones are the receptors, but you don't have to know the difference between the two. So the impulses then pass to the optic nerve, which takes it to the brain. There your impulse is interpreted, and you see what you're looking at. And it's interesting, I think, that really the image that's in your brain is upside down, the image that's going to your brain, and your brain knows to interpret it flipped upside down. So then it's seen perfectly. It's amazing. We're going to talk later at the end of this about how optical illusions work. Where do you think, what do you think determines that we're seeing an optical illusion differently than it is in real life? Where do you think that's happening? In the eye or in the brain?
The brain.
Yeah, it's basically your brain is misinterpreting what it's seeing. It's not that it's not working, but with the information that it's got, this is the best interpretation of what you're seeing. So that's like I keep saying, what you're seeing is based more on your brain than it is on your eye.
Mrs. Drews.
Yes.
So how does like being blind, how is that affected by this?
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's the same thing with hearing, you know, if you think about deafness. So if you think about all that has to happen for you to hear, did you see all the steps that had to happen?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, you know, have you ever seen those contraptions where you start a marble and it triggers all this different stuff to go on? You know what I mean? Same thing with what you're seeing and what you're hearing. There's all these steps along the way that have to happen perfectly for you to see. So if there's an issue, the issue could be with nerves. The issue could be with structures in the eye itself. The issue could be a part of your brain. So, you know, that's why there's a lot of different reasons why people can't hear or can't see. There's not even just one cause of it. Okay, so why do you smell what you smell?
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Human scent organs are made of olfactory cells that can detect more than 10,000 different kinds of odors. Ever smell a bowl of steaming soup? When you sniff, molecules of soup float up into your nose and dissolve on the surface of your olfactory membrane. The olfactory membrane is a special kind of skin with little hairs on it. Those little hairs are called cilia, and they contain chemical receptors. When a molecule hits the hairs, they send a signal through a nerve to your olfactory bulb. The olfactory bulb is an extension of the brain that interprets different kinds of odors. One smell cell in your nose can distinguish between hundreds of different kinds of smells. Not only that, it can detect odors in concentrations as small as 1 part per million in air.
Isn't that amazing? All right,
Yeah.
so the stimulus is going to be gas molecules. So for you to smell something, it has to be in a gas state. So the olfactory cells in your nose are what are triggered by that gas molecules. And then those start the impulse. Gas molecules then dissolve in that moisture that's there. The cells become stimulated, and if enough of those molecules are there, the impulse starts, and then those cells travel to the brain where it's interpreted. Owen?
If you have COVID, is like the olfactory cells in the bulb, are they affected so you can't, sometimes when you can't smell stuff?
Owen, I am so glad you asked that. And I don't know, but I'm going to research that. I'm going to research why that affects smell and taste. That's a great question. I actually just thought about that too when I was putting this together. Now, here's the thing. If you are smelling something for the first time, clearly you don't recognize it, but your brain will remember it. So the next time you would be able to identify it. Taste. So taste is stimulated chemically. You have over 10,000 taste buds all over your tongue that are enabling you to tell one taste from another. This is interesting. In order for you to taste something, it's got to be dissolved in water, which is what the saliva does. And that is how you wind up tasting something, because that washes over the taste buds and that starts the impulse, which is sent to your brain, which happens like this.
Well, onions do taste different from pears. Black licorice tastes different from popcorn. And salmon tastes different from most types of gum. Want to know why? Look at my tongue. Look at it. Blech. My tongue, and yours too, is covered with little bumps called papillae. You can see them when you look in the mirror. These bumps hold your taste buds. Your taste buds help you taste things. Here's how it works. All over your mouth, you have salivary glands. When you see or smell food, they produce saliva, also called spit. This is called salivating. If it gets out of control, it's called drooling. When you eat, your teeth chew up food into tiny bits. Certain proteins in your saliva go to work on these bits, breaking them down into their component chemicals. The saliva seeps back down into your taste buds, carrying with it the dissolved chemicals from the food. When the saliva enters the taste buds sense these chemicals. They send a signal to your brain that lets you know what the food you just ate tastes like. Most taste buds can only detect one type of taste. Receptors for different tastes are distributed all over the mouth. All tastes we know of are a combination of these 5: salty, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami. Oh, well, umami is usually described as a sort of meaty or savory flavor. If you've ever had Chinese food with MSG or monosodium glutamate in it, you probably know what umami tastes like. Other factors contribute to how food tastes: how it smells, how it feels in your mouth, and even how it looks. Babies have taste buds all over their mouths, which makes their sense of taste more sensitive. Because of this, they don't like adult food, which is too strong for them. They prefer baby food, which is really bland and almost tasteless. As they get older, a person's sense of taste gets less sensitive, and they can appreciate adult food. Your sense of taste not only helps you enjoy foods, it can also warn you when you're eating something you probably shouldn't be.
Okay. And then finally, touch. We've talked about this, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. But just know that there are several kinds of sensory receptors in your skin. Touch, pressure, pain, temperature, they pick up any changes. They transmit those impulses to the brain or spinal cord if it's a reflex. And then your body responds not just for to smell something or to feel something, but for homeostasis, to keep your body and everything working. So your fingertips have many different types of receptors, as you all found. And because of that, you can tell whether an object at the same time is rough or smooth, hot or cold, light or heavy. Pretty amazing. Your lips are really sensitive to heat, which makes sense because that prevents you from drinking something so hot that it would burn you. Pressure sensitive cells in your skin also warn you that danger could be there and that it might enable you to move so that you avoid injury. So here you have it. The sense organ with the receptors. I would get rid of eardrum. It's primarily cochlea. And then what stimulates and gets the impulses started. Okay, now for the fun. Optical illusions. So this is kind of this is a good explanation of how they work.
Hi, I'm Jerry Andrus. I'm very interested in how our human brains work, and I'm standing inside what I call Box Impossible. And if you'll look, maybe you'll see that there seems to be something wrong with it. Here is a picture of just ordinary fluffy clouds, and now I'm going to spin this trizone space warper, and I'm going to have you stare right at the center of it for 20 seconds. You keep staring at the center of this trizone space warper.
Those.
Now we're going to show you that still cloud picture again. You'll see that it looks like it's boiling.
Do you see it?
Moving.
Do you see it moving?
It just looks like it's boiling because you've been staring at the space warper disk. Got it figured out yet? Here's another one. This represents two large brass nuts. When I move them, they look like they're moving independently. Now I have a straight tube here. I'm going to push this straight tube through this nut, and you'll see that it looks like it has to bend in the middle to go through the other one. See, the straight tube looks like it's bent in order to go through the other one. Now here again, your wonderful brain has just shown you something different than what it really is. This is made out of plastic, and you are looking at the inside of this. Our wonderful brain interprets something different than it actually is, but it doesn't mean that it's made a mistake. It took the information it had and it did its best job. Here, watch this. Look, it's not a box at all. I was just standing in the corner of this framework, and you can see
wild?
it has no resemblance to a box at all. And your wonderful brain interpreted that picture on your retina as a box.
Pretty cool, huh? Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Jerry Andrus.
What do you see, old lady or young lady?
I see a young lady.
I can see both.
I can see.
I
I
see young.
only see an old lady.
Here's the young lady. So she's got like a scarf on her head, and here's her hair, and she's looking away. Oh, this is her nose and eyelash, and that's a feather.
Yeah, I see young. My older sister actually did that for like her science project.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, we'll do a couple more and then I'll let you guys go. You get a break now, don't you?
Like snack.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here, do you see a lady walking by a tree and buildings, or do you see a face?
A lady walking by tree and
face.
building. I see both.
I see both.
It's a face. Trust
Okay.
me. Both.
This one's wild. So this is either a horse or a frog. If you turn your head sideways for both of the pictures, you can see the other one.
That's so weird.
That's freaky.
That's crazy and kind of creepy.
And that is your brain interpreting it. Okay, do you see an eyeball or a sink?
A sink.
At first
An
I saw
eyeball.
an eye, but now I see a
Sink.
sink.
But like, yeah.
It takes me a minute to see the sink.
Yeah, yeah. Once you see the bubbles, you're like,
Yeah. Ships or bridge?
both.
Yeah, me-
Both.
yeah.
Yeah, I see both.
Yeah.
Another one, it's a different old lady and a different young lady.
Young lady.
It just looks
Old
like a young lady. Young lady.
Okay, here's the old lady. This is her mouth. This is her nose, and she's got a wart on her nose.
Oh.
And this is her eye.
That's creepy.
That's weird.
I just realized
I
that.
didn't see that until you
Ooh.
said it.
Who made this?
Oh, is this moving?
Yes.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Oh
What
my.
in the world is that doing?
It
I've
looks like
seen
it's
this
spinning.
one before.
Yeah, but it's not.
I see a man.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
Wait. How?
Shake
How
your
did that-
head. Shake your head and keep looking at it.
Whoa!
I see a man.
Right?
How does that?
What? I don't see anything but lines.
I don't know what this one is. Oh, do you remember this?
Yeah, it's like
Like what
That
color?
one broke the.
What color
internet.
dress do you see there?
golden white.
Yeah.
Does everybody see gold and white?
Yeah.
It's blue and black.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah, it's blue and
What?
black.
it's blue and black.
Wait, no, it's not.
What are you talking
Yes,
about?
it is.
Yes, it is.
Do girls see gold and white
That's
and boys
blue
see blue?
and black.
Oh, no, it is not. Are there any girls that see black and blue?
No.
No. Do all the boys see black and blue?
it's
black and
Where do you see that?
Will,
Where do
Black
you
and
see
blue.
black and blue?
what color do you see, Will?
Hold on. I'm sorry.
I see black and blue. Good job, Will.
Gabriel, what color do you see on the dress?
I see black and blue.
Where?
Do you think
It's
it's
black and blue.
do you
That
think
makes no sense.
it's fascinating? Okay, here's one. Are you looking up or are you looking down?
Down.
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 Actually, wait. Up.
Down. You're looking down on it.
Okay, but what if you're right here?
Then I guess you're looking down on it.
It's probably a curve or
See,
something.
this, it's looking, you're standing on top of it, but here it looks flat.
That's so weird.
Is that even possible?
Oh, I don't know
What?
what that is.
Okay, I'm gonna do my favorite one. Hang on. Now, hang on. Let me get to it.
How did they
Okay,
make that
okay,
dress thick?
This is what I want you to do. This is the coolest one ever. Okay, concentrate on these 4 dots for about 30, just keep staring at those 4 dots for about 30 seconds. And then look away to a wall, a blank wall.
Wait. I
Okay.
saw like Are you supposed to see a circle?
Nope.
It's like
I-
a man.
I
There's
saw a
like
circle with a
Jesus.
woman on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
You saw Jesus?
I see
Mrs.
Jesus.
Drews,
It looked like Anne Frank.
Mrs.
Yeah,
Drews, if you blink like fast, then you can see it.
yeah, you really have to stare at those dots for 30 seconds and then
Is
immediately
it like a man's surprised face?
it's
It's
Jesus.
Jesus.
It's Jesus? I
It's
just saw
Jesus.
a circle.
Is it supposed to be Jesus?
Uh-huh.
I just saw a circle.
I saw a circle too.
Okay, well, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to watch the video and get to this place and do it later. Or I bet you could even look it up.
Wait, how do you see Jesus?
All right, so what you do is you stare at these 4 dots.
I did that, but I just saw like a man with heart eyes.
Okay, here, you stare and I'm gonna time it. Don't take your eyes off of the dots until,
Okay.
okay.
Oh, I see it.
Now look away. Look at a wall, a blank wall.
It's so clear.
Start blinking.
I see it. I see it now.
You had
I
to,
still
like,
couldn't see it.
You had to like keep blinking.
That was weird. That was really